Okay, thank you very much. So we'll pause here for the speaker to respond to the questions. So I think, Andy, if you can respond to the first three sets of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kwame, Steve, and Newton. So let me start first with Kwame's point. I think it was directed at Prof, but I'll attempt an answer. I think what Prof said to Kwame Bekwin was some sectors have benefited from the COVID-19. They are not the cause, but the very nature of the pandemic is such that they had a windfall. So he mentioned telcos because we are using data and so we are paying more, etc. Typically, the ICT sector will have a windfall and their bottom line will be good this year. So Prof was suggesting that if that were the case, it would just be fair for sectors who have benefited more than they had anticipated to sort of come to the party and pay something more in the form of a windfall tax, just to push in the general economy. And I know sometime, was it 2014 to 2016, thereabout, some organizations, and I know the time that I was with Barclays Bank, the banks were asked to pay some windfall tax as a way of shoring up the economy. So that was the suggestion of Prof. And to Steve, yes, I agree that private equity is needed on the table. In a research conducted by the FAO and the United Nations agency that looks after the least developed countries, the UNCDF, they alluded that it is 5 times better to give investment or for investment to go along with technical assistance than to just give investment. Why am I saying this? For private equity to reach the agri sector or agricultural SMEs, it is important that there must be a technical assistance component to the investment. And on this note, I am calling on business advisory service providers to be able to educate the agri and SMEs to know what financing that will be needed depending on the cycle of growth. Businesses go through cycles. You start as a startup, grow, you mature, and you decline. So depending on where you are on the business value chain, for want of a better word, you need to understand and approach the right financier. Commercial banks are not your right partner when you are a startup. In fact, you will be fortunate to get funding from a commercial bank if you are a startup. And there are reasons for it. As soon as money leaves the vault of a commercial bank, the interest meter begins to kick. But you and I agree around here that every business has a life on its own. When you start, you will struggle, you will make mistakes here and there. If you take funds, that comes with interest. Can you imagine what will happen if after 2 years the business fails and you have to start? So as a startup, my advice to you will be use your own funds, go to family and friends. From there on, move to business angels, consider venture capital. Then in year 3, you can consider commercial banks, private equity, development finance institutions, etc., etc., as you grow and you make more money and you learn the tricks of your trade. Now to Newton, who wanted to know what should the agri-techs be doing in order to partner or work with, for example, commercial banks. I agree with you that yes, sometimes the agri-techs tend to live in the world of their own. But that is why, as an entrepreneur in the agri world, you must have a commercial acumen. It is not enough to develop or design your product, but you must go to market with your product. And thank God, COVID-19 has taught the commercial banks and indeed the financial institutions that having brick and mortar is not enough. You need technology. So my advice would be all the techpreneurs, all the agri-tech companies, this is the time to seek opportunity with a business head of any commercial bank. Develop your product, put it, package it well, probably get somebody who can support you in marketing it, come along with you, and do a presentation to the commercial bank. Sell the benefit of the product and not necessarily the features. Uh, where I work now, at Selling Africa, we facilitate lending to agricultural SMEs. And I receive presentations and discussions from agencies. A while ago, I had a chat with an agency called Cropfin in India, who are selling a crop insurance solution. Banks can sit in their office and be able to know what is happening on the farm of their agri SME. That is not all. There is one in the aqua sector called aquanetics that tells you the feed conversion ratio, how the animals are behaving. It can even give you the number of times that the fishes have been fed in a cage. So if I am a banker, for example, and I get my client to have this connected to his cage, I don't have to go out. But how will a bank know if this technology is available? You only know if you come and you market this solution to the bank. So go out, speak to the banks, speak to the commercial institutions to get their buy-in. It is necessary now, and this is the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yaku. Prof, if we are still around, there are a couple of questions that I took note for you. Considering the agriculture and agribusiness value chain, which areas should we prioritize for funding in the COVID-19 era?
Okay, thank you very much. I think Andrew has done a good job for me, and I think the organizers did very well by picking the right speakers. So it's not like, it's like, I feel like not adding anything to what Andrew has said. If you are not careful, it will amount to subtraction. So that's very insightful. I think, like Andrew has said, we need to understand the nature of the agribusiness. We need to understand the growth stage where we find ourselves, and then seek the type of financing that will be appropriate. So I agree that it's not everyone who can wake up and just go to a bank, because banks don't offer patient capital. At the introductory stage, what you need is patient capital. And I think patient capital is not available from the banks. So to that extent, we need to understand that. Then again, on the specific question of the entire value chain, I think because if you look at the investment value I mentioned, over $50 billion is within the entire value chain. So when you truncate one sector, it doesn't help you to get the entire gain in terms of the value chain. That is what we should be looking at. So as a starter, depending on business strengths, weaknesses, and all of that, they can look at whether they want to operate in the production, in the processing, the marketing, or distribution or transportation end of the value chain. They are all from the input dimension. So that will be dependent on the individual businesses and where they want to operate. I will give you just one example, because I don't want us to, I'm trying to be very careful we don't commit the same sin we committed in the cocoa sector. So if you look at the cocoa sector, where Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire produce more than 60% of the global inputs, and we get less than $10 billion. Meanwhile, the entire value chain in the cocoa sector is $106 billion. And we get very, very small. It's because we participate at the lower end of the value chain, where we don't command greater margins or margins at all. So we should be looking at the entire value chain. And when I say that this represents low-hanging fruit, in terms of the processing and the value addition, it's not that great. And sometimes it doesn't require huge investment as a start-off. So if you look at it across the entire value chain, you realize that it is within reach. But it's very difficult to win as an individual. And it's very difficult to pull the individual financing together. And that is why the group-based lending and the risk pooling becomes particularly important. And Andrew talked about something that I think in our part of the world we have not harnessed that much to its fullest potential, which has to do with angel investors. And how do we get them on board? And which we can link also to venture capital fund. Okay, so sometimes you realize that some of these things that have a bit of state oversight and all of that have not been that efficient in actually reaching out to those who are actually doing the real business, who have got a sound business model that can survive on their own. We need to do away with that so that we can make sure that the funding that we put together actually reaches the agribusiness operators, so that the funding reaches the people. But the other issue is that, which I agree with Andrew, we need to tell the story. We need to get professionals to tell the story, and we need to engage better and highlight the opportunities that are in there. So we need to move beyond just our own intra kind of knowledge, skill, or capacity building, and begin to also engage, identify the partners who can help, and begin to be a bit aggressive about that. So who are the angel investors? How do we locate them? Who are the development finance institutions? How do we get them on board? For instance, the African Development Bank, the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, and the various institutions. Let's look at the packages that they have. Let's engage. Let's look at how do we make it work for the ordinary African, the ordinary Ghanaian. And then also, again, financing must come along with the technical capacity building, which Andrew talked about, which I agree. So sometimes it's just about the packaging. And sometimes even a good idea, when said in the right way, makes more impact. So we need to do that. So to that extent, I think we need to work together with people who are in private sector players in scaling up in terms of the professional packaging and all of that, in telling our story and highlighting the opportunities. To that extent, how do we network and understand all the protocols, particularly within the African continental free trade, so we can take advantage of that, and so that Africa can talk among itself, we can talk among ourselves and discuss the risk, the opportunities. How do we manage it? With that one, I think we can make much progress. Let's understand it. Within even the chamber, the agribusiness chamber, that is very difficult to survive alone. So let's look at getting along with a lot of people and seeking the common good. That way, it will be easier, and sharing the information and best practices. But we also know that because of COVID-19, we have talked about that even before COVID-19 came in terms of the fourth industrial revolution and the role of ICT and digitization. So we should not see digitization as a standalone sector. For digitization of ICT is diffused across all the sectors now. So we can talk about ICT in agriculture, ICT in agribusiness, even in sharing market information and all of that. It can be done through simple phones, message here and there. And so that information from the farmer, let's say in Narugu or so, can easily reach agriculture extension officers, perhaps in the urban and peri-urban areas, so that help can reach them quite quickly. We need to do that. So we need to understand the entire value chain and then make sure that we eliminate all the bottlenecks along that. With this, I believe that we can make progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next set of questions with the extensive response, you have directly and indirectly responded to those questions, so I won't ask them. But there's one here that's quite distinct. It's very specific. The questions read: do we have institutions supporting irrigation facilities? Are there any supporting facilities for irrigation projects? I think this question, Andy, if you can just respond to the question to this, to the participant.
Thank you, Kojo. The authorized agency in Ghana that deals with irrigation is the Irrigation Development Authority, which is an agency under the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. I haven't seen their balance sheet, but I think Prof will agree with me that they are one of the sectors that are woefully underfunded. That is why we have a lot of wastage around the Apipe irrigation project. We are not getting the value that we should get from rice. The Pualugu one has been recently sort of revitalized, so that is good news. But what we need now, beyond the huge irrigation projects, which in themselves have environmental challenges, and the World Bank and major DFIs shy away from such projects, is to do village level dams, or even go the way of precision irrigation, where you just lay pipes and the crop gets the right amount of water and nutrients. In that stead, I am sure that most commercial banks will support financing that, except that probably at a small scale level, attracting the right financing will be difficult. But the only authority in Ghana now for irrigation is the IDA, and they are under MOFA. Thank you.
So I think the next level that we can also do is to also begin to assess those state institutions and their effectiveness in providing the service for which they were set up. And this can be done and so as a way of also doing advocacy for them. Because the understanding is that sometimes because they are government institutions, they may not be able to talk. But I think we need to understand the capacity deficits which they were supposed to fill and whether they are doing that very, very well. We need to be able to develop benchmarks for assessing performance. Okay, so we just can't leave state institutions to just draw salary and go and sleep. And annually just say, this is not enough, this is that, and all of that. So I think we need to do that. And then we need to see how we can link ordinary farmers, small farmer holders, and all of them to these state institutions in a way that they profit from. Sometimes it can just be just the knowledge, just the information, and all of that. We need to do that. So once we do that, and then we need to scale up. And I think as a country, we need to have a clear strategy of growing our SMEs, from some of them from micro to small to medium to multinational to global giants. We must be intentional about that. We must be intentional about that. And government must use its spending power to drive that. And Africa must use its combined spending power to drive that. Because the understanding is that we can go far when we travel together. And the earlier Africa recognizes this, the better. Because in terms, if you look at inter-regional trade or inter-regional trade in Africa, you realize that we trade more in value-added goods than trade between Africa and the rest of the world. And the world thrives on margins. The world today thrives on margins. So we cannot specialize on just producing primary products. And that is why agribusiness is fundamental, particularly in terms of value addition, because it's the value addition that makes the difference. We can embrace technology in order to do this value addition. And the reason this is also helpful is that I'm sure by the time we are done today, some opportunities will be connected. Some people will establish contacts and all of that. Maybe the next subsequent ones, we should be able to do some kind of evaluation and see what progress we have made and develop budget tracker tools that we can use to measure the progress across the entire value chain. We need to be intentional about that. Then we can highlight this to policymakers, to stakeholders, that these are the gaps. We could have done this. This is where we were, and all of that. We need that. When we're able to get that evidence, I believe that we can use that to engage our politicians. But let me submit the moral hazard here. The average politician is not comfortable to put money in the sectors where they themselves are not big players. And if you look at agriculture and agribusiness, politicians are hardly known in those areas. So if you don't push them, budgetary allocation to those sectors will always be dwarfed. They will be more comfortable to put money in the areas where their party financiers draw their livelihood from and their strength from. So we need to engage with hardcore data, with the empirical data. And if we're able to understand the entire value chain, and identify the gaps, the strengths, and the weaknesses, we can use that to engage. And annually, we can assess ourselves and see the progress that we are making. Thank you.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, as you are aware, the government is still rolling out this Ready for Food and Jobs. And then within the next few weeks, they will be rolling out the weekly component of the Ready for Food. That one, the government is looking at about 10,000 pigs to be made ready for breeding. So you can pigs, they multiply very fast. In 6 months' time, you can multiply that by 5. My question is, we don't have the processing facilities in Ghana. Maybe the politicians, they are taking right by asking them to multiply pigs. But what about the processing? What about the marketing? So very soon we'll be having gluts. My humble appeal is, as I speak now, I have been able to do meat processing, but I have done everything as I could. I'm sure Prof is listening. He says sometimes you have to do an analysis and see on feedbacks. I have been struggling to get these the meat processing equipment. I'm surrounded by so many pig farmers. If I get those equipment, I'll be able to process feed. And I think the same government can help to enter the continental African trade and then create more employment. But I can bet you within the next 6 months, the number of pigs that will be available in Ghana, it will surprise you. And my question is, how can we impress on private people as well as the government to make available these meat processing, which will in a long way create employment? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Godfrey. We'll take your questions up. Please, if you are on any of our platform, you have any of our contact, let's link up after the conference. We'll take it up, and the chamber will find a way to help you out, connect with the right people to assist you mitigate that challenge. With respect to our sections, we want to zoom into the next section. But before we go, there are 2 things. Hello? Because of our time, we can't take questions again. We'll respond to all the questions later on, but not now. Let's finish with the two other speakers. Two of the other speakers, other pressing engagement after 1 hour. Okay. There's a message here that I think if there's anybody from GIZ, I think I can see Christoph. We need to clear this air. The person said, please, there is a WhatsApp group in Ghana claiming to be spearheading a GIZ COVID-19 relief program for agribusiness owners. They are asking for company details and signing agreement with them before you receive 2,500 euros. How true is this? Is there anyone here from GIZ to speak to this? Well, I have not seen this, but from what you are narrating, it smacks of a scam. So if Christoph can speak to this and clear the air for us, or anybody from GIZ.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Christoph.
If I got you right, you're talking about a WhatsApp group regarding COVID-19
Relief Fund.
Relief Fund. No, I have never heard of that. So I would be cautious, very cautious regarding that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I suspected that much. So without much ado, I would like us to move straight into the second section. But there's also another comment here. Let me read it quickly to us. It said, we are a company located in Germany carrying out businesses in precision agriculture using satellite imagery worldwide. We are open to exchange ideas, support, and work together. Please do not hesitate to write to us with an email. Before I leave, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to join and wish you all the best. And so those of you who are interested in precision agriculture using satellite image technology, we'll link up with them. So if you need further details, contact with the chamber and we'll be able to connect you to these guys who are looking for partners to collaborate with Ghana. Thank you very much. We'd like to call on the next speaker, Mr. Flectis Miller, who is the agribusiness governance advisor at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. to speak to us on one of the aspects of the team for today. Mr. Miller, if we're here, please can you take the floor? And you have 20 minutes. Please be brief to the point so that we'll be able to finish on time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Anthony, the Business Chamber, and all other interested parties for having me be a part of this significant event. I just want to say, Anthony, I'm very impressed with your efforts, and you've been trying to lead the Chamber into the right directions, posting lots of helpful information and keeping a lot of people up to date. And it's really a great service that you're providing. And so thank you very much for that. I want to begin by kind of setting the stage a bit. As you can probably hear from my accent, I'm an American, and I've been in Africa for 25 years doing this work, but not just in Ghana, not just in West Africa, but also in Southern Africa and in East Africa and Central. I've been a part of really impacting growth for a lot of companies in Southern Africa, East Africa, and now back in West Africa. The last time I was in West Africa was in 94, 95, working in Nigeria. So getting into the situational analysis of COVID-19 and the impact that this is having, I'm going to try and keep it a bit more interactive because, you know, a lot of us have gone through the data. We have been able to diagnose the problem really well, which is something great we can all talk about, but we really haven't looked at comprehensive solutions that can come together. And so I imagine many of us have looked at solutions, but the reality is that solutions are really hard to come by, and then implementing them takes on another taint altogether. So I'm going to try and tell you what I'm doing as part of the Tony Blair Institute and what I'm doing in Ghana, and just give you kind of an overview. So I joined TBI a year ago working in Ghana, and I work closely with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in an advisory capacity, looking at strategic value chains and working with the donor community, all the donors in Ghana that are contributing to Ghana's agricultural prowess. So I try and do several things. Let me tell you a little bit about TBI. TBI does not, unlike other donor agencies, TBI does not provide project funding to say provide technical assistance, a massive project like AID does to say cashew or to fruit and vegetable crops and the rest of it. What TBI does is provide technical specialists, and there are very few of us. I'm one of a few in agriculture that really are focused on providing value by working with the donor community, working with the private sector, and bringing in investment. So that's what we do. I go the extra distance. I want to tell you, I go the extra distance beyond what is required because I don't take on anything I can't make a success. So I want to be very clear with everybody about the things that I'm looking at trying to have an impact on. So I partner with a lot of the donor agencies and private investors and to position Ghana and to position markets and to position value chains into those areas that I find are really have high growth prospects. And I know many people talk low-hanging fruit, but sometimes it just takes a bit more than that. And but I do try and look at the low-hanging fruit. With respect to the previous speakers, thank you both very much for your insightful presentations. They're very helpful. So that's the reason why I won't go into too much of the statistics and things like that right now, unless you really want me to do that. But I want to just tell you a little bit about the things I'm focused on. So I want to express that with AFCFTA, what this does is create a unique opportunity for Ghana, unlike anything I've seen in the history of working in agricultural development for a long time. This is a unique and desired opportunity and positioning for Ghana to really be a regional juggernaut in the region, to do amazing work in the region, and to be a center in a number of different ways. So I'm hoping that we can see more develop as a result of this, because COVID-19 has presented, yes, there are winners and losers, but I'm really, since I've been a part of what's going on and providing technical advisory, under COVID-19, what's going on, I've attracted investment even in this environment into Ghana. And I'm hoping to implement this once things open up so that I can execute this investment into Ghana. And I'm going to come back to that, but I just want to touch upon a couple of strategic things. So one thing that is very important for investment, and an area that I think for those that are seeking financing, seeking investment into your respective business areas, the Agribusiness Deal Room. Agra is very active in building the Agribusiness Deal Room. The Agribusiness Deal Room is scheduled to take place in September, I believe it is. And the exact date and details I'll pass on to you, or please stay in touch with me. Please stay in touch with Anthony. I'm sure he has this information. This will be a virtual deal room. It took place last year in Accra, and we put together the platform for MOFA for those strategic areas that MOFA feels are germane for investment and want to have investment into Ghana. So we did that last year. Now it's going, because of COVID-19, we have a virtual deal room that we're going to be pursuing. And we're coordinating with Agra to present this and those priority projects that we feel will be instrumental for where Ghana wants to go, and the types of, either be it large foreign direct investment or if it's SME oriented investment. I'm particularly interested in the SME framework because in every part of the world that I've worked and also studied in Southeast Asia and the rest of it, it usually starts from small and medium enterprises, not some big stick approach to transform an entire country. So I want to be very clear about that because that's a very, very different thing. A lot of people think, oh, the big stick approach is going to solve all of our problems. It doesn't. So I really focus on SMEs and the equipment, the total technical specialty know-how and everything around it to look at building a formula for SMEs to really grow. And I have several examples of that, but moving on. I'm focused on, tell you what I'm focused on under my arrangement with TBI. I'm particularly focused on certainly juice processing, improving everything around the production at orchard level around juice primary production, from mango to pineapple, you name it. Mango has been a real big issue because of the disease and fruit fly related issues and orchard management issues associated with it, but I think it could come around. It was mentioned earlier, I think by Prof, about the prowess of the citrus industry in the 60s and 70s in Ghana. And this is something that I think we can really bring to bear and bring it back. But moving on, I'm also focused on cashew. I'm focused on cocoa. I'm also focused on coffee and coconut. Now, I'm just gonna jump to cashew. I'm sitting in South Africa because I flew here to actually source equipment as opposed to buying it from Vietnam or India, and to work with engineers that I funded many years ago in South Africa that can produce this food processing equipment so we can have the equipment produced, at least in Africa, sourced in Africa, and provided to those that are primary farmers of cashew on the continent. So I'm working with them to really pull together the equipment, full specifications and reverse engineering for what is to be done for this type of thing. One thing I want to add about cashew is the value addition around it, and the oil also, which is extremely valuable. So these are the things that I'm looking at, all the aspects around it. I also look at the market access issues, and I have market for those that are producing cashews, producing coffee, producing coconut-related products, and the rest of it. So I can open up a lot of doors in that respect, and that's what I do. So as a solution area, these are the things that I attack. And in terms of equipment and value addition, I'm looking at the mechanization angle to all of this, because really what stands to gain that would be hugely transformative in all of this, as far as I'm concerned, is the equipment angle. And everybody always wants to run to China, but I know that there's sources for used equipment, sources for new equipment, and engineering specialists that can produce the spares and necessary stuff that can keep the operations going. So I work with companies on their design, for their layout, for their factory operations, for their total compliance, their packaging, their labeling, their barcodes, because different barcodes required in different areas, their phytosanitary. So I do the certification processing with companies from ISO 22000 to HACCP to Global Gap and BRC. So these types of things are is really what's going to move Ghana to the next level and what needs to be done. And I think it's a growth area. I'm going to come back to a series of growth areas, but I just want to tell you the things that I'm busy with first. So, and these are what I'm positioning for the agribusiness deal room coming up in September. And I think if other people have other areas that they want to position, then please let's try and coordinate so we can have a targeted approach, utilizing AGRA, utilizing my resources with TBI and the donor community to represent the agribusiness deal room for what Ghana seeks to have, seeks to generate interest in with angel investors and the like. So because it's a very good platform for attracting that. So I wanted to jump to phytosanitary compliance. Ghana was rejected not long ago because of its phytosanitary related issues of not meeting that constraint. And this is an area that is hugely important, particularly in this environment. COVID-19 has a direct relationship to phytosanitary compliance. As you might have known, or might have witnessed, many abattoirs, butcheries, the rest of it, many people in these environments get sick because of blood airborne related things happening, not taking the proper precautions. There's a lot of issues around these types of environments and slaughterhouses and the rest of it. And this is something that we need to nail down now in order to be a leader in the region and for Ghana itself. So I really would like the emphasis around phytosanitary compliance to increase. And I know that there's a big effort, and there's talk about it. And I think some institutions, I forget which institution is looking at assisting and building that even greater, but the laboratory testing and issues around this needs to really be pressed upon, because even for all this 35 billion of inputs of food into the country and the rest of it, the fact of the matter is the testing for many of these goods doesn't really take place as it does in the States. It goes through, but they randomly select in the US. So can you imagine what's happening on the continent? So many people are getting inadequate food, things that have been tainted with all sorts of things, and they have no absolute clue of what's going on, and nor does the Food and Drug Administration sometimes. So we need to really look at increasing the ability of having phytosanitary testing and laboratory development really take hold so that we can be leaders. And this goes down to issues of even for restaurants, tourism, and everything else associated around it. So I'm a big proponent to that, and it's something that I focus on with companies that seek to export, but as well as meet the local demand requirement to provide healthy and hopefully organic food, because we do know that many people are using pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides excessively without really following the application of it. Rice storage. I wanted to get to rice storage. Rice, we know, and the big campaign around rice for Ghana is a tremendous success, but it's the early days of success. So there's no reason to sit on one's laurels. But I wanted to add that this particular issue for rice storage overall has presented a unique opportunity, because one, the preservation and food product related issues, as well as the value addition can be harnessed from this, is tremendous. And I'm working actively to bring in some of the leaders actually in storage technologies, and I will touch upon that in a bit once I one of the things I'm also busy with is mapping systems for rice around the country, all the different locations, to really understand where rice is produced in Ghana, how to map this out in a hub and spoke arrangement for efficiency of first of all storage, but also getting goods to market and moving around the country, And another integral area which I am actively involved in, which I've brought in investment, is greenhouse. Greenhouse villages is part of the PFJ, Planning for Food and Jobs Stable, and I'm very active in that. Now, we know that there was an organization out of Israel brought in to create these 3 nodes around the country, and they have done their job, and I think that's really great. What's happening is that greenhouse development is meant to train the next leaders and next youth leaders in understanding greenhouse technology to be deployed essentially and offer their skills and services to the country at large. One thing that I've done that I think will have a huge impact around greenhouse villages and particularly greenhouses overall is I provided a turnkey, cost-efficient methodology for not only horticultural production, but also for fish production around aquaponics. So covering fruit, vegetables, and fish combined in a 300 square meter turnkey facility. This is an area that I've introduced. I have an investment. I have investors that I brought in from the States, and I'm looking at guiding this particular project to make it a huge success. It is a fully climate-controlled operation, which doesn't exist too much in Ghana because most people don't put that type of investment into a climate-controlled facility. So this particular investment will be, I think, will have a huge impetus. First of all, certainly in fish production, but also it will be able to produce roughly 25 megatons of fruit and vegetables per annum and roughly 5 to 6 tons of fish per annum in a 300 square meter facility. And this is just a test pilot facility that I'm hoping to introduce around the country for interested parties that would like a turnkey operation that they could invest in. Once again, it's targeted towards small and medium enterprises, and the cost of which I cannot see exceeding anywhere. I don't want to give you a wrong estimate, but I can't see it exceeding $50,000. So I'm hoping that this facility will be hugely instrumental for demonstrating the type of prowess that can be done within a small turnkey operation, covering the irrigation system, the types of beds, 3 different types of beds, the complete pumping system operations from start to finish, and everything else around it that could deliver quality organic food, fish and fruit and vegetables in one fell swoop. So I'm quite excited about that, and I have some of the market leaders in that. Now, coming back to the storage, one of the market leaders I have working with on this investment is also provides rice storage. So I think that they'll be hugely instrumental in terms of addressing climate control technology around rice storage as well. So that's a investment in the COVID-19 environment that I've put together, and I'm quite excited about it and looking forward to implementing this as things open up. Value addition. I wanted to touch upon value addition. I'm working on value addition in so many different ways in these areas. One of which is the know-how around the types of equipment that's required, the types of product that needs to be created, the phytosanitary compliance requirements that need to be created, and also finding the market for these product lines that I mentioned, which is cashew, cocoa, coffee, and coconut. So, so I'm trying to coordinate with the various associations in which to pull this together. And I will leverage donor funding where possible to make this a reality. And so these are the things that I'm active with in conjunction with MOFA. So another area in MOFA which I'm quite active with is on the M&E, on the digitization and extension officer analysis arrangements, really to understand how to best understand what's going on at farm gate and to also improve technical training, know-how, and shall we say, educating farmers and bringing them up on pricing, on new ways of effectively managing their small plots, and the list goes on. So that's the M&E part is an integral part of what I also spend time with MOFA and looking at the strategies for that. Mind you, I came from, I'm an IT specialist and I know engineering as well, but I used to develop applications for banking and insurance companies many years ago before I went heavily into agriculture. So I understand the requirements necessary to build the type of applications for M&E device, for handheld devices, to get the type of data set you need in order to deliver this and deploy it. Let's see. I think I covered a lot. I'm kind of talking fast because of this 20-minute constraint. I'm coordinating with IFC as well as USAID on market access. I did mention that. Food export restrictions. Under this COVID-19 environment, we know that food export, a lot of countries have slapped food exports and said, hey, look, we're not going to sell you certain elements. I think this creates a unique opportunity to really, for one, to look at oneself and to build the technical capacity that exists in Ghana. Yes, 60% of the people are involved in agriculture. It's an amazing number, but I think there's a lot of support that Ghana doesn't realize that we need to harness. And sure, working with banks, FIs, and the rest of it, they don't understand sometimes agricultural lending. I've experienced this from my early days back in banking years ago in terms of developing product lines for banking institutions. And yes, you need to handhold them to understand. This is a growth area as far as I'm concerned, because if you can provide technical assistance to financial institutions and FIs and everybody else associated to help them build a better model, then you've done a world of service for those small and medium enterprises. You can amalgamate them, and for medium and larger enterprises that have a capital constraints in this environment. So I think there's a great opportunity to provide that type of technical assistance to those financial institutions to help them understand better what to do. And in terms of building the financial models to see the revenue constraint around it, just to understand how they can make revenue and how it, over time, it can win, is not terribly difficult, depending on what you produce and the value addition prospects that it also carries along. Donors are looking for leadership in this. FIs are looking for leadership in this. A lot of importers, your historical importers of note into the U.S. and others, are looking for this as well. They're looking for leadership. And I say this for a reason, because it's those that come out with comprehensive methodologies to solve some of these complexities of disrupted supply chains that will really, really do well. So delivery services and things like that, people have witnessed the growth of delivery services has been tremendous, particularly even before COVID-19, when I think of Grab in Southeast Asia. So them alone, I've watched them, and I paid very close attention to them. And the growth of that has been so tremendous, and it's only going to improve. Now, marry that with the phytosanitary constraints, the care with which quality and service needs to be implemented, where Ghana historically has had some challenges in that area, is something that can be done with the right thinking behind it. So the rethinking for all the approaches for addressing this, I think, is a unique opportunities for those youth, women, and all sorts of people that will have a great interest in furthering the playing field in this. There's something to be said, though, for cash crops versus food crops and those at the bread line. And I know all of us have been talking about, and I still hear right now, everybody's saying, oh, a lot of people are more focused on cash crops than anything else than food crops. And it does concern me for those at the bread line. So a service must be dedicated around this. Hence, the investment piece that I've brought to Ghana, and I'm bringing to Ghana with regard to this greenhouse operation to produce quality vegetables and fruit in this type of arrangement, I think serves to strengthen the bit of that, but it's only a small component. But we really need to, I think the cash crop guys will pick up, and we need to enable and strengthen them, because we can't allow that to falter. But the food crop angle also needs a lot of attention. This brings me to a particular issue I want to raise, which is around the cultural makeup of what people eat. Sometimes there are huge differences, and I've experienced this in Ethiopia and Kenya, a lot of places. We could talk coffee, but Ghana's not really a coffee drinking society. People eat cashews, yes. We can talk all sorts of around cultural related foods and things like that. Snack foods, for instance, nutritious snack foods. These are growth areas that I think could do really well for those that are focused on exporting and meeting the local demand constraint for product lines that can be sold and innovative ideas and things like that. Even on the food crop side, there are snack foods that can be created as well to meet those at the bread line and to offer product lines that could widely be offered into the Ghanaian market, unlike what has been done before. There's a bit of that taking place. I've seen it with coconut chips and things like that, but I haven't seen it with plantain, banana, even coffee, snacks out of coffee. I've seen it with a lot of different products, like from kale and the rest of it. So there are some unique ways in which to pull this together. This brings me to an area of well, how best to go about it. I think something needs to be said about faith-based organizations coordinating and working together and raising the money. Everybody says banks and local institutions don't offer this. They loathe to give, and interest rates are so high. Yes, they are exceedingly high, but I think faith-based institutions, as well as Islamic organizations and the rest of it, if people club together every month and contribute in building a fund to address some of these issues around value addition, purchases of equipment, of farm inputs, I think we'd have a huge actually surge. Now, this brings to mind corporate governance systems around managing these types of cooperatives. Some of the most successful cooperatives I've seen in doing this actually exist in churches in Kenya. Kenya is probably the leader in cooperative governance models that I've seen, from transportation to owning buildings to assisting with all sorts of agricultural input materials. They've done exceptionally well in this, and I think this is something that would work in the context of Ghana. And I know people are sometimes, I've heard people say, cooperatives don't work in Ghana, the rest of it. But I think it has to do with the cooperative governance systems and safeguarding, giving people confidence that their money won't be stolen and everything else around it. So there's measures of trust that needs to be reestablished. And sure, I don't have an easy answer for that one, but the fact of the matter is that something needs to be said about this opportunity for raising finance, unlike what has been done before. And this is probably, even though it's a small amount and it's every month, I think these things add up. And then it becomes a bargaining tool for negotiating with the financial institutions that are willing to leverage on that money. So it's something to think about as a potential to offer as another, shall we say, quasi blended finance model or something like that, but something that certainly should be considered. There are a few growth areas that I see, and I just wanted to just quickly run down. And again, I say storage systems. It was mentioned that people don't have refrigerators and the rest of it, but understanding storage methodologies and being able to manage that constraint to eliminate post-harvest losses is a tremendous. This is an area I think is growth. Now, getting back to irrigation and water management systems, with all the plastic waste that exists, I really would like to see the research institutes in Ghana and diasporans and everybody else involved in this process that's interested in Ghana really come together, because quite frankly, with all the plastic waste and everything else, I started looking years ago at creating the systems for irrigation, drip irrigation, using waste plastics and injection molding and blow molding to create the components for drip irrigation. And this can be done. It's not terribly complex, but it does require a bit of technology around it. And I think I challenge really the research institutes to get involved in this type of thing, because it's a very big growth area that will transform Ghana, let alone the continent, in addressing this issue alone. for coconut farmers, you name it, all sorts of different farming operations. I mentioned the issue around value addition, abattoirs. I think we need to improve the phytosanitary around that and really hone in on that. I touched upon the phytosanitary. Food nodes. The food nodes around the country, we need to actually ring fence them and really improve the phytosanitary compliance around these food nodes in the country for measures of efficiency, and also to create another market that people will take a great interest in coming to these informal markets because of the style of it. I've visited many informal markets around the world, and a lot of people have positioned them beautifully, since you want to go there as opposed to going to the formal supermarkets and the rest of it to buy your goods because you offered also a better price. So these are areas in which government and private sector can coordinate together in unique public-private partnerships. Medicinals. Now, Ghana has incredible resources. Unlike a lot of places I've seen, you really have everything. You have really everything at your disposal to take advantage of some very strategic areas, from fisheries to shellfish and the rest of it. Now, and when it comes to medicinals really stick out to me. When I say medicinals, I'm talking about from Acacia to Echinacea to all sorts of different areas where I know that this business, that is a growth area that will take off in the years to come, and because of traditional tinctures and medicine that are needed within formalized medicine, it's a golden opportunity for those that want to engage in it. I mentioned snack foods, from cassava chips to all sorts of things that frankly I think is a golden opportunity, and not really, and I mean good quality products. And so, you know, it has to be done in such a way that it's attractive. I don't like the idea of being able to see 85 or 90% of the products on the shelves in supermarkets coming from outside of Ghana. That should not happen. The same applies for when I think of, you know, as we try and move, you know, in this decade to move forward, you know, there's an issue around quality management systems in all sorts of different areas, from water management and the rest of it. And I should be, you know, many people should be able to turn on the tap and be able to drink the water freely without any disease or anything else around that. And so there are certain water purification systems that uses activated charcoal from coconut in order to eliminate these types of problem areas that exist. So anyway, Speaker, I know I'm going over time, but I just want to touch upon some of the issues that I find are growth areas and hugely important. And I say thank you for this opportunity. I could go on, but I'm just going to stop there. I have a lot to say about some of the areas that I've worked with in the past and what I'm busy with. And I'm looking forward to implementing this investment piece for this greenhouse operation, because I think it will be very demonstrable in showing people fish, fruit, and vegetable production all in one in an efficient methodology is turnkey. But and so stay tuned for that. And if anybody's interested more in that, then certainly we can cover it. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm willing to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Miller. That was very detailed and practically and personal. Most grateful. We'd like to take our last speaker for the day, then we'll zoom into the Q&A section. So please keep your questions coming in. If you have questions that you think you may forget when you get to the last section, post the questions in the chat box. And whilst the second speaker is speaking, please mute your microphone so that we do not distract the flow of his presentations. Let's stay tuned to have the last presentation. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Mr. Nalban Bonjaji, who is the CEO of Agribusiness Ghana Limited. Mr. Nalban, if you are here, please let's hear your presentation. Thank you very much.